All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all fans of all ages, I am Beast Mikey. You've now arrived at my train of thought. It's time for Miami Mock Mondays, and this week we've got the Combine to reference off a little bit because it just happened over the last few days. Everyone got measured up, everyone kind of did the running in the shorts and the jumping and the lifting and the throwing, catching, blocking, all that good stuff. We all saw it. And Indianapolis is a very fitting place for this because this week's mock took me to the best conference in college football, the Big Ten, a conference I know all too well because that's where my school is. You'll hear from my school in a little bit. Also, the Big Ten, the Conference of Champions, the last three football national champions from two of the ops in Michigan and Ohio State, and obviously this year, I guess you could say, Indiana, which ironically is where we start this version of Miami Mock Mondays, and not with Indiana as in Lucas Oil Stadium where the Hoosiers won the Big Ten championship, not Indiana in a sense of who they demolished en route to the national championship game in Miami, but the team that Indiana beat to win said national championship, Miami. It went with Francis Mauigoa with the 11th pick in the draft. I did think about taking Kenyon Sadiq here. I did kind of want to go with a Sadiq draft and test that theory, but this time it didn't really work out that way. With a lot of the mocks I was able to do, Mauigoa was an easy faller to 11 and probably the best player on the board once we got there. So I decided to go with Mauigoa with this pick. The physical style I've mentioned in previous mocks. He is a day one starter, I think, at right tackle, as long as Austin Jackson's not on this team. If he is, then great, you move on to a different thing. But if he's not, then Mauigoa is a day one starter there. And maybe he can play guard as well if need be. Which leads me to the player comp that I saw here in terms of a ceiling. Darnell Wright's probably a proper comp because of his size and his physicality and his athleticism. But his ceiling, the ultimate ceiling for Mauigoa, is Penei Sewell, a guy that a lot of people wanted Miami to draft when they had the golden opportunity to and took Jalen Waddle instead. I was never mad at taking Waddle. Tua needed a receiver that he could get the ball to, and why not one of his college teammates? Happy birthday, Tua. And taking Sewell, Detroit did, really was one of the staples and one of the linchpins to what's been an incredibly physical offensive line over the last few years. And I would love for Miami to kind of replicate this and have an offensive line that is full of maulers and bruisers and athletes who can do what they do. Penei Sewell's one of those guys, and he has been probably the best right tackle in the game since he stepped in. No disrespect to Lane Johnson. But anyway, I would love this idea, or left tackle, depending on where you want to put Sewell, because he's played both. Sewell's been outstanding, is the point. And Mauigoa, if you can slide him in at right tackle and let him ride on the opposite side of Patrick Paul, you got two bookend tackles. We've seen it work in places like Los Angeles with the Chargers. Let's do that. Let's have a physical offensive line, and please believe I did go back to the offensive line later on in this draft. But not in round two. Round two, I went with receiver, and as you can tell by the opening statement here, this is very Big Ten centric. I did not leave the conference for the rest of this mock. Denzel Boston was my next pick. I did not go to Boston for this mock, but I did go to Washington for it. And his 6'5", 215, 220-poundish frame, a go-get-the-ball type of guy, 50-50 ball type of dude who's got some decent speed. And Miami's needed a physical 50-50 kind of guy, receiver that could actually do something competent for a long time now to go and diversify the offense a bit from the Washingtons and the Waddles and the Tyreeks when we had Tyreek. We need one of those types of dudes that is a big guy on the outside that can go get it and be a matchup problem for a lot of people. And Denzel Boston is such a guy. And his absolute ceiling, I think his player comp being Michael Pittman's a pretty good one. Cortland Sutton's a pretty solid one. His absolute ceiling being Puka Nacua, I can rock with that. And as we've seen over the last few years, Nacua may not be the fastest guy. Boston's not. But he can get down the field when necessary. He can accelerate when there's an open space. And it's just a guy who's got really sure hands because Boston didn't really drop the ball too much at Washington. The drop rate was really low. I'm okay with this. And Denzel Boston being on the opposite side of Jalen Waddle, who, let's stop all these rumors with Miami trying to trade Waddle, because I think they're not doing that. And you can put him, Malik Washington, in the slot where I think he would do some damage. Give me the match of nightmares. I'm okay with this. Next up, we go back to the trenches, go back to the offensive line. Jennings Dunker, a guy from Iowa who's got a very good mullet, as you can tell, but is also a mauler and also a physical lineman, also a physical guard. We need one of those. We need a right guard horribly because the James Daniel signing did not work and it's actually costing us money to dump. Okay, yeah, we need an offensive line. We need a right guard ASAP to make sure that that side of the line is completely filled up and completely solid. A mauler type, one that we missed since Big Bob, as I've mentioned in several mocks now. And I want to see that filled up so that Achane can go get the tutties and also get the yardage. Same with Ollie Gordon and Jalen Wright. Obviously 3 non-Big Ten guys, but you get the idea. Anyway, Dunker's physical style, he's not as athletic as you would probably like, but he's a guard, so I'd like to think he will be able to serve up pancakes like he's working at an IHOP. I'm okay with this. And I'm also okay with his comp, which is another Iowa Hawkeye, and Brandon Sheriff, whom a lot of Dolphin fans have wanted for years. If you read the Dolphins' Twitters and social media pages, a lot of Dolphins fans have wanted Brandon Sheriff for a long time to be one of the guards on this team and fulfill the roles that Liam Eichenberg and other guards of his ilk could not fill. Not named Big Bob. And I think having a Brandon Sheriff clone, because he's kind of, or little bro, if you will, due to his size and his physical nature, and obviously his run blocking presence, I'm perfectly okay with a mauler of this type. Now, sure, I would love a zone blocking scheme type of guy, but Pregnon from Oregon wasn't available at this time, at that particular pick, at the round 2 pick, where I probably would have taken him. So that's why I waited for round 3 to make it happen and pull the trigger here. So that's where I went with Dunker in round 3. Next up, I went with Takario Davis from Washington. I wanted some more size at cornerback. Now, yes, Juju Brent's a 6'3" frame. That works. I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly cool with it. And I like what Jason Marshall did. But again, if the thought is, okay, Jack Jones is probably gone, that's a 6'3" corner who's got some pretty good ball skills. And Davis also has some pretty solid ball skill and some underrated deceptive kind of speed for his size. And that's something you can't teach, and something that we could absolutely use to deal with the receivers in this conference, because there's a good amount of receivers in the AFC that we're going to have to deal with, especially this year coming. So I'm okay with this, and I think this will work out. And if he's anything like rookie year Super Bowl champion Tariq Woolen, I'm okay with this too. Now, Woolen, since his rookie year, has not been great. Still a solid starting corner, but obviously been passed up by Devin Witherspoon. That was an outstanding pick by Seattle in the part of the Russell Wilson trade. But Rick Woolen has shown himself to be a good playmaker when necessary and when he's not taunting the opponents. And if you're telling me that he can be such a thing, Davis, that'd be perfectly fine with his 6'3" frame and physical style and his type of style and type of length and underrated speed, because Woolen's got underrated speed on his part too. So I'd be okay with that. The next few picks are from a place I know all too well, Penn State. And the next 3 picks are guys I've taken in previous mocks. The first of which is Denied Dennis Sutton. I've mentioned this ad nauseum enough. I want the physicality, the power game that he brings. I'm perfectly okay with this. He was Penn State's best defensive player this past year, and probably second best defensive player in the 24 season when the Nittany Lions were a play away from the national championship. And that's obviously without Joe Carter being the best defensive player. But DDS showed himself that he can be a number 1 pass rusher, and matching his power up with the speed of Chop Robinson, another Nittany Lion, I'd be okay with it. And I think that would be a pretty good look. I've mentioned comps like Preston Smith and Marcus Davenport over the times that I've had DDS in these mocks. And he's another one that if I waited another round, he wouldn't have got there. So that's why I decided to take DDS with this pick here at 90. 21 picks later, Zyke Wheatley. I decided to double up. And as I mentioned before, I tripled up with Nittany Lions. And Wheatley is a ball hawk. We need ball hawks, and we don't force turnovers. Miami has not really forced too many turnovers, and maybe we got spoiled by the 2020 team, who was the best in the league at turnovers, and Xavier Howard got robbed of Defensive Player of the Year with 10 innos. We need some dudes that could go get the ball. Wheatley is one of those types of cats that can go get the rock, and he gets innos, and is a really good center fielder, and especially with his size and his length. Not the greatest with the tackling, but he's not terrible at it. He's not a liability at it, but a good center fielder and a guy that can go get the ball when necessary and pretty solid in coverage. And he kind of compares to Lewis Sin because of his size, and that is something I can rock with. I can deal with that. And I think he'll be a little bit better than Sin. I think he will be a pretty good ball hawk center fielder type in the NFL because of his frame. Next up, I went to a guy I've been kind of pounding the table on for the last few months that Miami should absolutely draft and develop in Drew Aller. I could not wait till round 7 anymore to go get him. He was going in the mocks that I was doing, kind of like test run mocks to see where everyone would land, and he was going before 200 in some of them. So I had to go pull the trigger and get Aller here. And I told you guys for a while, the arm strength is there. He's got decent mobility for his size. Pocket passer, yes, but he can move around. He's got pretty solid mobility in the pocket. The decision-making clearly has to improve, as I've mentioned. I would like to, ideally, see Bobby Slowick help improve that decision-making. But the physical stuff, you cannot teach it. You cannot teach the arm. You cannot teach its strength. He's got that. It's one of those things. And for a team and its fan base who has been pining for arm strength for the last 4 years, Al's got it in spades. And that's a guy I kind of want to see develop with some good coaching. And obviously with Penn State, that was kind of the problem. The coaching just didn't gel. Like Koltanecki, for example, is more of a college style, more RPO style, and it worked with Bo Prabula when he played sparingly. And I think it probably would have worked with Rocco Becht had he stayed, but obviously he's gone. But it wouldn't have worked. Aller, I don't think, would have worked with the current coaching staff that is at Penn State with Matt Campbell and company. I don't think it would have worked as well. And I think with Slowick, with a more modern, traditional pro-style type of flow, I think that's going to work out fairly well. Obviously, the motions will still be there because Miami's going to use motion, and that's what Slowick did in Houston. But with a more traditional style offense, I think Aller would probably succeed pretty well in the NFL. And the comp of Kerry Collins, I think, still fits. I think the comps of Allen and Roethlisberger are absolute highest of ceiling, especially Roethlisberger. I think with the build, I think is a really good. If that's his ceiling, I think we've got something here. I don't think he's going to be Allen with the athleticism and the ability to run like Josh Allen does. But I think Ben Roethlisberger would be like the highest ceiling comp you could have for Drew. And finally, I went to USC for round 7, and I rolled the dice here. I took a chance. I did want a linebacker, and Jacob Rodriguez was going faster than I would have liked. So I decided to wait a little bit and roll the dice with Eric Gentry, linebacker from USC. And what's interesting about him, as long as I was reading up on him, is that he's kind of got an NBA-style build. He's 6'7", 220 pounds. So in theory for the NFL, little light on the frame, but in terms of the coverage speed, in terms of the ability to move around and be kind of a free edge rusher, if you will, when necessary, he does that fairly well with his underrated speed. That's pretty good. And it's for a round 7 pick, it's kind of a project situation. Maybe in the NFL, if he got up to 240, I would feel so much better about him. And if he kept that speed, and he probably goes way higher in the draft than round 7 if you were able to do that. But in any event, the weird thing about him, other than his frame and the ability that he has at linebacker, is that his comp is a defensive version of Devontae Smith, whom some of you guys have seen over the last few years, has turned himself into a really good wide receiver despite the frame, and he's been able to take hits and be as fearless and physical over the middle as he needs to be at wide receiver. The former Super Bowl champion Devontae Smith has been. So if you're telling me that Gentry is more so the defensive version of that, hey, I'll take it. That's not bad. And at round 7, you kind of roll the dice there anyway. So I think it's worth a shot and see if we can build with the athleticism. And there you have it. That is this week's version of Miami Mock Mondays, the first Monday of March. And I got one more before free agency starts. Anyway, coming up later this week, Power Rankings. I got 2 different Power Rankings to do this week, the NBA and the NHL. And I'll be able to start with the latter sport. Hockey's back, and we'll have some actual games being played since that Olympic break, and the incredible performances by the men's and the women's teams. Salute to both genders in bringing back the gold and beating Canada. And Canadian fans crashing out has been hilarious. Anyway, who's going to be in Fulton, Kentucky in both sports for those zombie tiers? I know where I'm starting with the NHL. Vancouver, you're going to be the first stop of my next train of thought.